most like to be, I won't say led by, because I don't think politicians do lead, most like to be served by, if you want to put it that way. Someone intelligent, articulate, connected to the world, experienced in people, experienced in the culture and the society from which they have sprung and which they hope to serve.
And emotionally robust.
Someone emotionally robust but emotionally intelligent, someone with a sense of the age in which they were born and a sense of future, a purposive sense of things to do, mountains to climb. Imagine such people, men and women who have that, and yet on top of that are skillful, have a good memory, are able to master a brief, are able to respond well with other people from other countries, and all these things here, and not look appalling when the cameras are on them. I mean, they don't have to be a great communicator, but just not, embarrass you. Imagine such a person. Why would they want to be in politics? Now of all times, especially with the politicised people, because nothing they do will escape scrutiny. Nothing they say will go without being judged incredibly harshly. What I want is for the mature people of Britain to get to think about how the clamour with which anyone in public life is condemned, and to see if we can create a space in which the best of Britain is allowed to get a chance to serve us. As it is, anyone can sit on the sidelines and say, well, firstly, anybody who wants to be a politician will exclude them. What a witty joke. We heard that when we were 10. Just but the very fact you want to be in politics should exclude you. Well, actually follow that through. Right. So no one who wants to be. So everyone who's in politics is doing it reluctantly. It's like national service. It's just anybody can stand at a bar with a drink in their hand and go, load of old wankers. I can do it, you can do it. And we're right. Yes, they are a load of old wankers. But where does that get us? That's all I'm saying. Where does it get us? And the press exposing everybody is of course, the press are right to do it. But bear in mind two things. One, the sheer hypocrisy of the press claiming that somehow fiddling expenses from a private company is more moral than fiddling expenses from the British public. How dare they be so greasy? Let them at least have a theological view of the world. They've got to stand at the bar of heaven and claim that they got away with saying that their dishonesty was more honest than someone else's. That is just loathsome, and that's what I meant by saying you and I and all of us are guilty, because we're human beings. I'm not a Christian, but it makes me feel like wanting to be one and saying, at least read the bloody New Testament and see, first cast the beam out of your own eye. But that's beside the point. I do see the press is right and reason, and the Telegraph has had a magnificent coup, and the rest of the press have followed it. And of course they're right to do it, and I'm not saying they should be muzzled. All I'm saying is we have to think it through.
Yeah.
I'm not providing any answers.
You spoke about climbing mountains. Now, you in your professional life have climbed a lot, and particularly in your personal life. And one of your greatest achievements of late, there's just too many to focus on in this short time, but has been breaking down the stigma of mental health.
Yes.
In your TV series about your own relationship with bipolar disorder. Do you feel you've succeeded on some level? I mean, what has the reaction been of the British public?
Well, the reaction has been terrific, and I think in an ongoing sense, I can't say that I've succeeded. It's not over, but I hope, what the first breach in the wall might have been made, because it is a great wall stigma, and it's very easy for me to compare it, because I've had the same experience with coming out about your sexuality. It's a similar thing, that the business of your sexuality is relatively unimportant. It's important to the individual compared to the stigma of the rest of the world. And in that sense, it's much easier for someone like me to come out both as a gay man and to come out as someone who has a mood disorder than it is for someone who works in a factory or in an office and who is not in show business and doesn't have the freedom that I have to be honest about myself. And so, without sounding too greasy, you're not doing it for yourself, because that's easy. I can tell anybody.
But even more important that someone like you should come out, having had all your
success. That's what I mean.
Exactly.
That it kind of, in the same way with sexuality, it was that the people like me or Ian McKellen or whatever coming out, one hopes, but in the end, it's the bullying in the playground in both issues. It's the casual, until people can say, it's like shouting at someone, haha, you've got I don't know, what is that? Something that you're asthmatic. You go, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it is no different. It's just simply a chronic condition you have, asthma, that you might take a little wheeze box for, or you might take something else for, or might take who knows what sort. But I don't think many children actually torture or other children for being asthmatic. They just accept it, and so they should with mood disorders. So should adults, and so they should with sexuality. I say should. It sounds very pie and priggish, but it's just in better everybody.
Have we a long way to go for discrimination on both?
Yeah, well, a long way, but we've come a long way. I mean, look how far we've come.
Well, we have civil unions for gay couples, but is that far enough? Or should every marriage be a civil union?
Gosh, I mean, I hate using the word should. I am fundamentally a libertarian, and I think they could be. I mean, I think to say anything is illegal, you've got to have a much better reason for saying something should be illegal than for saying that it should be legal. Certainly I've got no patience with people who brandish the family as some kind of divine creation against the evidence even of the Bible they claim, which does not go on about the family at all. It's full of plural marriages and wives killing husbands and husbands killing wives. I mean, I've yet to see the only one who vaguely says that marriage is acceptable. That doesn't even push it is St. Paul, the least attractive of all the great figures of the New Testament, who says it's better to be married than to burn, in the sense of burning in concupiscent lust. He doesn't actually say marriage is the be-all and end-all. He just says, well, if you're going to have sex, then it's better to be married than not to be. Well, that's hardly a ringing endorsement for marriage as a state ordained by God, and that any two men who dare to presume that they're loving each other should allow them to have similar status as a man and woman loving each other. Well, I mean, you can say my own prejudice dislikes it, but don't claim the Bible does.
Yeah.
I mean, the Bible is far more interested in circumcision than in trashing gay people. So just ask any Christian who goes on and on about it and say, well, are you circumcised? But I think I can quote you at least 17 passages about your uncleanness, and there are only 2 about men lying with each other. So get pissing life, you waste of skin.
One final question.
Yes.
You wrote a brilliant letter to yourself, your 16-year-old self, in The Guardian a couple of weeks ago.
Oh, yeah. Well, I actually wrote it in Gay News, but The Guardian reproduced some of it.
Very good.
Yeah.
Well, you've spent a lot of your life in libraries. Do you see a kind of a death of intellectualism emerging, and even a celebration of idiocy? I know it's not quite apparent at the Hay on Wye Literary Festival, but outside this tent, for example.
No, I don't. I mean, yes, there's an extent to which people crow that anything that is said that takes pleasure in the life of the mind can easily be crushed as snobbish elitism. And where once it used to be crushed as snobbish elitism by the left, it's now more likely to be crushed by the right, or at least by that sort of bourgeois tabloid sort of centre ground that regards anybody who uses a Latin phrase or is interested in, remembers some battle or some artist or some intellectual idea, is somehow doing it in order to show off, and therefore, rather than to share their excitement at the idea. There is an element of that, but I don't think it's any greater than it always was. If you read the popular fiction of 100 and 150 years ago, and Oscar Wilde in his essay shows that the rage of the middle classes against the artist and the intellect has always been intense.
And speaking of Wilde, I mean, people like him and yourself, polymaths and Renaissance men, are we seeing the death of them?
No, I don't think so at all. I'm a great optimist, and one of the things that encourages my optimism is actually the online world. I mean, there's a huge amount, of course, of torture, bully and abuse going on online that people draw attention to. There's some of the flaming, as it's called, some of the hideous comments posted on people's sites, and some of the less seamy sides of life. But there is also an extraordinary opportunity for people of immense intellectual curiosity and artistic curiosity to go so much further than they could have done in the past in satisfying their hunger and their appetite for spiritual and intellectual nutrition of a kind that is not laid down in the way that religion is, but is the kind that opens the mind rather than closes it.
Stephen Fry, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank